This is the Black Information Network Daily Podcast, and I'm your host, Ramses Ja. All right, Tyreek, welcome to the show, man. This is your first time hanging out with me. How you doing today?
Yes, sir. I'm excited, man. This is good. Good to be with you.
I appreciate that, man. Well, we got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. All right, first up,
Sure.
big story from over the weekend. The headline reads, Ungrateful Black Kids. Principal allegedly goes on racist rant in audio. So this comes from BIN. The Baltimore County Public Schools has launched an investigation into a high school principal who was allegedly caught saying racist remarks about Black and Jewish people in an audio recording, per the Baltimore Banner. Pikesville High School principal Eric Eiswert is accused of being the voice behind the audio recording circulating on social media. Quote, I seriously don't understand why I have to constantly put up with these dumb expletive deleted here every day. Eiswert allegedly says in the audio. He goes on to say, between these ungrateful Black kids who can't test their way out of a paper bag or these teachers who don't get it, how hard is it to get these students to meet their grade level expectations? Eiswert can also allegedly be heard naming a staff member who, quote, should have never been hired and saying, quote, I'm going to drag his Black expletive deleted out of here one way or another. It goes on to say, I am just so sick of the inadequacies of these people. The recording continues. And if I have to get one more complaint from one more Jew in this community, I'm going to join the other side. All right. The identity of the voice behind the recording hasn't been verified by district officials. Superintendent Miriam Rogers called the audio deeply disturbing. Miriam says, I understand how upsetting this recording is for many members of the Team BCPS community. Rogers said, we will not tolerate disparaging remarks about any member of the Team BCPS community. Officials of the Council of Administrative and Supervisory Employees, a union that represents school administrators, defended Eiswert, claiming the recording was AI generated. And they have a statement here. The outrageous language in the audio is not the language, thoughts, or character of Principal Eiswert. He is an outstanding school leader who has daily demonstrated his commitment to the students, community, and faculty of Pikesville High School. Billy Burke, the union's executive director, said. So, Tyreek, what are your thoughts on this story? Obviously, this is very upsetting to people like us, but how did this hit you when you first came across it?
Yeah, I was looking at it, and I'm gonna tell you. So while you were reading it, because I was going through it myself, I was thinking like one thing that really struck me was I'm looking at it, and it seems like the other side's argument is that it was AI generated and not like real, so it was like made up. That's an interesting argument for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, but I would say for me, I mean, it's one of those things where, it's a sad, upsetting situation. And I think, and I definitely think some actions need to be taking place against the principal for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What this does for me, because to be honest with you, I personally have not heard the audio.
Mm-hmm. I haven't heard it either. Just read.
But with a story like this, obviously it makes its way to us. And then even if I did hear the audio, I wouldn't know heads or tails of the audio. I work with audio every day, but I couldn't tell you the difference between audio generated content from a voice I've never heard before and real content from a voice I've never heard before. Of course, if it's like Drake or someone that has a popular voice, we might be able to tell the difference, but I don't know the voice of this principal. In any event, what this does for me, at least, is it kind of scares me. First off, I think that might be a tough argument to make, given that, school principals typically don't have a lot of recordings out there in the, online space to pull from, so that an AI can model, their voice patterns. But I don't know how much is necessary to be able to, get that off. And the second thing is that it worries me. I mean, if they were trying to shift the focus away from the principal and toward the dangers of AI, they were successful, because now I'm thinking like, man, my voice is out there a lot. I know your voice is out there a lot too. And if they can make us say anything and make it seem like a gotcha recording, that's deeply concerning. But also it kind of blurs the line between fact and fiction. And if this man is really, if these are really his thoughts, it's tougher to hold him accountable and get someone in there who is really more focused on working with the people that they have to work with rather than, being frustrated about the people they have to work with, especially because we're dealing with students and, he mentioned Jewish people and on and on. And if not, then this is something that casts doubt on perhaps a well-intentioned, well-meaning individual who, is doing his best to do the job. And maybe there's someone close to him that could inject the name of an administrator to give this recording some more credibility. They could inject that name into an AI model and get this off. So it's confusing to say the least, but I think that's me kind of giving the benefit of the doubt. That's my journalist brain.
Yeah.
My brain, my normal like day-to-day life is more inclined to just say, all right, we're gonna have to do some investigation to make this stick. But I think that he probably said that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because it does feel a little. If he didn't say it, then somebody very close to him had to have given the words to this model to say. So, obviously this type of story we're going to keep our eyes on and see what happens next. But for now, you're in the know. So
yeah, and I'll
go
say
ahead,
this. Oh
please.
yeah, no, I was gonna say this. I would say, even if, like, listening to what you said, even if, like, let's say for instance he actually didn't say it and it was AI recorded, somebody somewhere made somebody mad somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
To have this situation spiral, the way it did and stuff.
Sure.
So it's either probably somebody close to him. If it is in fact, AI generated or whatever, probably somebody close to him who probably just set this up and stuff like that. But I would say somewhere in this situation, somebody was angry, if that is the case.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Another big story over the weekend. Far-right figures tried to create a white nationalist haven in Kentucky. I'll share a bit from The Guardian. A venture fund and real estate startup, both with links to far-right organizations, are promoting a residential development in rural Kentucky as a haven for fellow right-wingers. The promoters have presented the planned development as an aligned community for right-wingers who want to disappear from the cultural insanity of the broader country and spearhead the revival of the region. Right, Joshua Abatoy, who is managing director of the venture fund, new founding and principal of real estate developer Kentucky Ridge Runner LLC, according to company records, offered few details on how the community would be run beyond saying, quote, most of the leadership is going to be led by Protestant Christians. He appeared to indicate the community would seek local political influence and use that as a blueprint for state-level power. Quote, the aspiration is that long-term, down the road, 20 years from today, we continue to do this. We're regionally focused. We can expand from there to states, he said. So, a far-right white nationalist haven in Kentucky. How did this one hit you when you came across it? Yeah,
it's just one of those things where it's like, I feel like white nationalists are still living in a time that, I feel like they're still living in the past.
Yeah, sure.
That makes sense. And I don't think, and I honestly don't think that they have moved on, and it's just one of those things. And if you look, it's like the first thing, whenever I think of like white nationalist and, stuff like this story, I always think about that, that KKK rally that took place in Charlottesville a couple of years ago, because Charlottesville is actually my second home. And so, whenever, and I just think about, what that situation was and what that was like and all, like, and all the terrible stuff that happened that day. But this is one of those things I just think is just like why?
Yeah.
It is like why are we still doing this? Why are we still living in these times? Like, what, yeah, why?
Yeah, exactly.
That's just my argument. That's really just how I feel about it. And it's just like, when are they gonna move on?
There's a an interesting thing about this story because first off, I try my best to find what the opposite or the inverse of this is, right? And the truth is, when I hear far right white nationalist haven, where these white nationalists get it to be sort of separatists and they get to, create the reality in which they want to live. Obviously, my brain goes to, okay, these are racist Klans people, like you mentioned, uh, the far right rally in Charlottesville. Actually, I've been to Charlottesville.
Oh, okay.
I was very much saddened by the death of, I believe her name is Heather Heyer.
Yeah, Heather Heyer.
Heyer,
Yeah.
yeah.
My uncle
Um,
actually knew her.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, my uncle knew her.
yeah, yeah. So her death at that protest, I ended up passing through there, and just kind of
Mhm.
went to go see what it was like there, right? But I look at the opposite of this, and it doesn't feel as crazy. It is. This is definitely a little crazy, but it doesn't feel as
Mhm.
crazy. I look at people like Dr. Umar Johnson, who has, I don't want to say the same beliefs, but similar beliefs. The sort of black separatists, Pan African Africanism, that sort of thing. Which I know Pan Africanism is not the same as white nationalism, but you find a lot of similarities in folks that have that way of thinking. And sometimes when I see black nationalists making these statements, I think, okay, well that makes sense for them. You know what I mean? And it
Mhm.
doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't offend my sensibilities. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Um, for Ramses, I feel like that is, again, I'm not saying this about anybody. I don't have a problem with any of these people, particularly black, anybody doing anything positive for black people. But for me personally, if I were to say, you know what, I'm going to live a separate life in an all black community with all black people that reflects all black, sensibilities and values. I feel like that might be me sort of throwing in the towel. That might be me giving up on this great American experiment. Um, I feel like we can continue to engineer and re-engineer a path forward. Indeed, when I look back and I see where we've come from, I recognize that it's a long, hard fight. I recognize that I myself, I might not make it to that utopia where we get along better with each other in a more equitable society. It might be my children's children's that get to live in that world, right? But I feel compelled to put this on my shoulders, this burden on my shoulders, and continue this journey because I owe it to my ancestors that came before me.
Absolutely.
And for me to say, you know what, this is never going to work. Let me go buy a piece of land and let's invite, 3,000, 4,000 black people to live on it. And we'll just be an isolated community in the broader country. I feel like that we tried that when we had Black Wall Street. We tried that when we had, many of the black settlements that have subsequently been flooded or taken over, that sort of thing, because that was the only option. And really, what we're doing now is gaining more in the way of political influence, more in the way of representation. And I'll be fair, we might take, two steps forward to take one step back. And I've said this on the show before. We've had to lesser of two evils, quote unquote, our way to where we are right now. The thing is, we don't want to pick the greater of two evils or have that to take root, because then that indeed moves us backwards. I believe that the Trump administration is a representation of that. We wouldn't have a conservative majority in the Supreme Court if we did not allow that election to take place. And then subsequently, we've had that Supreme Court strip rights away from us. So, yes, indeed, there's some people who say it's a lesser of two evils. We're throwing our vote away to Democrats. They never do what we want, that sort of thing. And indeed, the lesser of two evils is what has gotten us here, and then after a while, the lesser of two evils is us pulling the left more toward what it is that we want. It's a long road. And so when I think of this separatist sort of thing, it's not for me, but the main point I want to make here is that it doesn't feel crazy when someone says that, someone black says that. And so when someone white says that, I want to keep that same energy and say, like, well, I mean, it's not crazy. It's certainly not something that I would want to do. I don't believe most white people would want to live there, but I can't call it crazy because from where I sit, if I wouldn't call someone like Dr. Umar crazy for wanting that, I can't. I have to keep that same energy and, call it what it is. That's a spade. Well, this is not a spade per se, but it's very similar in texture to a spade. And so if they are successful, good luck to the far right folks in Kentucky. It sounds like it'll be a sundown town, so I won't be caught dead there. I've been to Kentucky before too. And I was there briefly. I went to a Walmart and decided Kentucky was not for me and went back to, I believe it was Tennessee. So,
I will say they definitely doing it. And if they doing it, they doing it in the right state. So.
There you go. Yeah, they have all the support they need over there. So today's guest is Black Information Network news anchor Tyreek Wynn. All right, so this next one comes from the Daily Mail. Mississippi mom posts disciplinary note for her first grade son after he got into trouble for saying Jesus Christ at school, and she got a wave of support from social media users. Okay, so a Mississippi mother sparked outrage when she posted a disciplinary note of her first grade son who had received it from the school for saying Jesus Christ. Danye Terry, age 7, got into trouble at Hope Sullivan Elementary School in southern Mississippi for using unacceptable language at school. A Facebook post from the first grader's mother, Shauna Coleman, revealed that Jesus Christ were the words that landed the little boy in hot water. The incident took place on January 4th at 1:15 p.m., according to the disciplinary note, which described the alleged rule breaking that took place. Quote, he said, Jesus Christ, when he dropped the Legos, he was cleaning up from recess, the teacher's note read. A statement from the school said DeSoto County students would never be disciplined for simply saying Jesus Christ. All right, so give us your thoughts, man. This one was absurd to me, but go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I just want to say one thing that struck me was, okay, so they called it inappropriate words, or what right. Did they call it specifically?
Yeah, unacceptable language at school. There it is.
Yeah, unacceptable language. Okay, so when I think for me personally, like when I think of unacceptable language in school and stuff, I think about cuss words and stuff like that. Exactly. Right. Okay. So I can say that I think it's a petty argument. Mm-hmm. I don't really think saying Jesus Christ is a problem. Especially when, if we say, it's been a while since I've been in school, but as far as I know, they still say the Pledge of Allegiance and we say under God.
God. That's a good point. Yeah.
So it's like, mm-hmm. I don't understand. So it's like, if we're saying under God in the Pledge of Allegiance every day, then saying Jesus Christ shouldn't really be a problem. And then if he obviously it's not a serious situation. He just dropped his Legos and he probably just did it off of instinct, right?
Yeah.
So, but in a case, if he wants to call on the one he serves, then that's his choice. You know what I'm saying?
That's fair.
And so I don't think anybody should be penalized for doing that, because what happened to freedom of religion? So why is he being penalized for this? I think it's a petty argument. I would assume that maybe the teacher just has a problem with him, or, maybe he's not the best student in class and the teacher might be out to get him or something like that. I remember I had one of those teachers that was always out to get me, and I got parents call for every little petty thing. So it might be one of those situations, but I think it's, I think it's kind of petty. I don't really see, I know they said they sent a letter home and stuff. Did they say exactly like what disciplinary actions the school was taking, or did he go to ISS? Like what happened?
From what I have here, it's just a disciplinary note.
Okay.
And what really got it to spread was the fact that it was shared on social media. And people's reaction to it. I don't know that it was, there was an action taken. There may have been, of course, but when I first read this, I was thinking that, it had to have been one extreme or the other. One extreme being that the school or the teacher was taking the separation of church and state very seriously. And so, again, to invoke the name Jesus Christ, even as an expression, because it didn't sound like it was a prayer or anything like that. It was like, oh,
Yeah, it was like,
when something like a
yeah.
reaction, like shoot or
Mhm.
dang or something like that, something a person might say for dropping a Lego.
Mhm.
That they're taking, the separation of church and state too seriously. Because as you mentioned, and that was an excellent point, by the way, in the Pledge of Allegiance, on the money, one nation under God, so,
Because they do
in
still
God
say
we
it.
trust on the money,
Yeah, they still
but yeah,
say it, right?
yeah, sure. As far as I
Okay,
know.
okay, yeah, okay.
And then the other extreme could have been that maybe this, because it is Mississippi, maybe this teacher is taking indeed the idea that is held widely in the Christian faith that just simply saying Jesus Christ is effectively taking the Lord's name in vain and then laying down disciplinary action as a result of that. Either way, in either case, it's an extreme, neither of which really has a place in this particular circumstance, a person
Exactly.
dropping a Lego. So, if it wasn't a little black boy in a country with Christian sensibilities and there wasn't the social media for this to spread, it might not have been anything other than the typical, you know, like you said, teacher picking on a student for whatever reason. It could be a white teacher picking on a black student. This part I don't know. But
Yeah.
or it could just been a very conservative, very Christian person picking on a maybe non-conservative, non-Christian, but who knows? But
Yeah.
in
I
any
do.
case, it's a
Oh,
sensational
oh, yeah.
story that
Mhm.
certainly got people talking.
Yeah, for sure. What I do want to know, because I didn't really like hear it in the story, but I do want to know, like, I guess, did the mom take any actions? Did she go up to the school? Like, I would like to know,
I
like,
feel like
what
there
took
was
place.
something like that did take place.
Mhm.
Because the school did respond, so I feel like there was something like that did take place. But I don't know that we'll hear any more from this story. I think it was just
Yeah.
kind of a funny story that got people reacting because
Yeah.
it's not like anybody was really hurt. It's just kind of come on, y'all are tripping. So we'll
Mhm.
see though. All right, our last story for the day. This one's heavy. All right, the Messenger is where we get this one from. Dollar General shooter wrote racist manifesto titled White Boy Summer to Remember before killing 3 black people. All right. Florida authorities on Friday released the hateful 27-page rambling racist screed written by the white gunman who targeted black people, killing 3 at a Jacksonville Dollar General last year. Jacksonville County Sheriff T.K. Waters said the release of the document titled White Boy Summer to Remember comes after his office concluded its investigation into the August 26, 2023 attack that killed Angela Michelle Carr, 52, Anult Joseph A.J. Laguerre Jr., 19, and Gerald Deshaun Gallion, 29. Waters had long promised to publish the manifesto from Ryan, I don't even want to say his name, age 21, the shooter, vowing his office was committed to providing the public with transparency on what happened. Quote, members of the public deserve to determine firsthand what this manifesto is filled with. Oh, sorry, that this manifesto is filled with the rantings of an isolated, hateful madman whose disgusting ideology is wholly inconsistent with the belief structure of the Jacksonville community, his office said in a statement Friday. He goes on to say, as our city heals from this tragedy, let us continue to stand united. The manifesto, which was reviewed by the Messenger, is laden with racial and anti-LGBTQ slurs and espouses racist and anti-Semitic ideologies. So, Tyreek, talk us through this one. I'm not sure if you checked it out or not. I did not have the mental capacity to read some more racism because that's kind of the space I live in. I fill
Yeah.
my cup daily and it's very quick. So,
Yeah, I understand. I actually remember this story. I
mhm.
remember I think I anchored it or something, but
Okay.
I do remember this story. It was very heartbreaking.
Mhm.
Um this situation, I just feel like it's just one of many, You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, we had this situation. We also had this situation. What was that? What was it? Buffalo? What was that?
Yeah. The Buffalo shooter. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
grocery
yeah.
store.
Okay. I definitely think there needs to be something done about the mass shootings that we've been facing, you know, within the past couple of years and stuff. And I feel like there needs to be something done, or there needs to be something explored to figure out how we can prevent these situations from happening, you know, to the best of our ability. For this story particular, looking at this, yeah. This manifesto, White Boy Summer to Remember, it's definitely crazy
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. You know, the thing that jumps out at me for this one is that, you know, I'm not a fan of the sheriff here, the county sheriff,
Yeah.
in Jacksonville, TK Waters. He's a black man that obviously holds very pro police views, but he's also a very conservative um, individual, and he parrots a lot of white supremacist ideas. And I don't know that that is something I'll ever be comfortable with. He would not call him that, of course. He does not. I don't imagine he would. He believes that the things that he says and the things that he believes are white supremacist. But I just kind of know that they are. So one of the things that jumps out is when he says that the manifesto is filled with the rantings of an isolated, hateful madman. That word isolated, what it does is it tricks people into thinking that this outlier type of behavior is the result of a person who just exists separate from any community, any sense of connectiveness, you know, and that may largely be true relative to lives like ours, where we have lots of friends in lots of places. But make no mistake, these types of far right, you know, mass shooter type of people, school shooter type of people, which that's another thing. I don't like the fact that people um, try to separate the two. They're all mass shootings, right? Some people are younger and they can take it out at school because it's a place where there's lots of people gathered in one place, and some people can't get to a school. Indeed, this gentleman was trying to get to a school at first, an HBCU, if I'm not mistaken. But again, the language that, you know, this is an isolated individual, what it does is it removes the community that this person comes from. You know, you notice there's a trend. They're always white. They're always far right. They write all this racist stuff on their guns, and they have a manifesto. Why are all these things consistent for almost all of these mass shooters? Well, that's because they have a community online in 4chan or 8chan. You know, there's people that encourage them to do these sorts of things, people that let them know that they will be remembered. They belong to a community. And that community only exists as an offshoot from the white supremacy that exists on the far right, which in and of itself is a community. It's a broader community for a person like this, but it is a community, right? And then, of course, you can, you know, go a little bit further and just say, generally speaking, republicanism is a haven, a safe haven for all of this white supremacy. And then on and on and on, and it diffuses more and more. But the fact that he's trying to call this individual isolated, it shifts the narrative away from something that we all need to be paying attention to. It's easy to dismiss someone like this by saying, oh, okay, he's an isolated one-off and he's dead. So everything's right with the world now. All's well. And it's very dangerous. And this TK Waters individual is he's just doing the bidding of the people that don't see this as a problem. And the people that don't see this as a problem often enough are people that espouse white supremacist views themselves. And so I warn us all not to take this man's words at face value. This is not an isolated individual. And as you mentioned, Tyreek, once we get to the point where we do have meaningful gun reform, where we do get assault weapons off the books, you know, I have a 9-year-old. He goes to school every day. Every day. He's at school right now. and until we have elected officials that can take on, gun lobbies and money in politics and really change that, it would be short-sighted for us to think of these individuals as simply isolated individuals, isolated hateful madmen, as it were. That is not fair to us, right? So shame on you, TK Waters, for putting that word in there, because I know it's like a dog whistle. I know exactly what you're trying to say. You're trying to put a thin veneer over white supremacist views by suggesting that somehow this individual does not represent indeed a significant portion of the population, so much so that this will inevitably happen again. And so with that in mind, we'll leave this one right here. I'd like to thank you very much for your insight. It's been a joy. Once again, today's guest is Black Information Network news anchor Tyreek Wynn. This has been a production of the Black Information Network. Today's show was produced by Chris Thompson. Have some thoughts you'd like to share? Use the red microphone talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. While you're there, be sure to hit subscribe and download all of our episodes. I am your host, Ramses Ja, on all social media. And join us tomorrow as we share our news with our voice from our perspective, right here on the Black Information Network Daily Podcast.